Welcome to Start Contributing to Perl. It's easy.
How easy is it?
It's so easy. I'm going to show you in the next few slides. So my name is Augustina Ragwitz. You can call me Auggy for short. A little bit about me. So I've only been a Perl developer since 2007. My first YAPC was last year. And I came to YAPC with this goal of I really want to start contributing to the community. At that point, I'd been programming in Perl for a few years, and I was just really excited about wanting to give back to open source. And in Perl, there's so much tribal knowledge. It is not so straightforward. You keep, like, for instance, in Ricardo's talk, you heard, yeah, contribute, and it's my big question was like, okay, how, or where, or what do I contribute? So that's where I got the inspiration for this talk. And I hope it's useful. And a couple other things. I currently work at Media Math in New York City. We're hiring. If you have any questions about that or want to talk about that, feel free to chase me down after the talk. And then here's some contact information for me. If you have questions and maybe you're a little too shy to ask in a big group or whatever, feel free to contact me via any of these means. And also, I will be uploading these slides, and I'll go ahead and post it on Twitter with like a hashtag YAPC. So you'll be able to find it that way. Or I'll send it to the email list too. All right, let me get on the right screen so I can change slides. All right, oh yeah, so I just talked about this. Why am I giving this talk? So I just made my first contributions. My first contributions have been really small, little documentation patches, nothing profound. But the way that I see it is, I spent about 15 to 20 minutes trying to look for information because of a poor documentation patch, and so now I've saved somebody that 15 or 20 minutes by making that small documentation patch. So I would really like to share what I've learned with all of you, and hopefully it'll inspire some of you who've been like me, involved in Perl for a while and really wanting to give back to the community to, do something. So yes, Perl wants you. So here's my little spiel about why you should contribute to open source projects, because open source is free, but there is a cost. And so I like to equate it to public radio, although it is more like public access TV. So, pay your dues through contributions. I mean, generally, like you hear on public radio, like, oh, we need funds. Well, open source, we need contributions. So it's really awesome. Do it because it's fun. Makes your resume look cool. Maybe you want some experience and some other things that you're not getting through your day-to-day work. Contribute to open source. All right, spiel over. Start small. So one of the biggest things that you can do to get started with contributing is to get familiar with the patching process first by making small contributions. So, do small code patches. Maybe there's like something really minor, a little typo in a variable name, or some really simple refactoring. Documentation patches, excellent. And also unit tests are an excellent way to start learning about, some new context. And then here's another little thing. Remember, working in a new code base requires context, so don't be intimidated. If you're really interested in learning more about, say, asynchronous programming, and you're like, wow, I'd really love to hack on any event. Be realistic. It's going to be a little scary at first when you're getting in there, but don't let it intimidate you. Start with, again, unit tests, documentation patches. See if there's anything small that you can get started with while you're, getting to learn the context of, the code environment you're working in. Another great thing, so I was surprised, there's a lot of people that actually don't know about IRC. So IRC, if you're not familiar with it, irc.perl.org, pretty much, a lot of Sipan modules, you'll see them in the documentation, and various other Perl projects have channels on IRC. I recommend starting places as #Perl help or P5P. People in there are generally very nice and very helpful. So feel free to go to those places if you do have questions, and I'll give more explicit directions to different things as I talk about more specifically Procore and Sipan contribution. So where can I contribute to Perl? So this talk I'm going to talk about contributing to Sipan and also touch on how to contribute to Procore. And again, this is all very high level, very simple. If you want to do anything, more hardcore and heavy, maybe this talk might be a little bit basic, but at least it'll get you started and kind of see where to go to get ideas and just to get started. All right, so just to touch on Procore, this is called, or Perl 5 Porters. It's located at dev.perl.org. There's also the mailing list. Perl 5 Porters subscribe is how you can get your your email added to the mailing list so you can listen in on the many discussions and contribute. There's also a great IRC channel. So let me flip over and show you guys the, this is the wrong one. So here, this is the web page for Perl 5. You'll see there's already some links to some various documents here that are really helpful, and you know, it's a good starting point for learning more about contributing to Procore. Let's see. Oh yeah, so a good reason to contribute to Procore. Pumpkins is a rotating group of individuals. I think right now it's RJBS. I shouldn't say I think. Right now it's RJBS for cobbling together changes and releasing new Perl versions. Patches go into new versions of Perl, so even if you submit a small documentation patch, your name goes into the release doc and you are immortalized forever as being a Perl contributor. Put it on your LinkedIn profile. It's great. Yeah, so that sounds really cool. So now what? Well, like I said before, look for things that are easy to contribute. Easy equals small fixes for learning the patching process. You don't have to know C programming to contribute to Procore. Again, you can make documentation patches, you can patch supporting scripts, a lot of stuff in Procore. There's actually little Perl scripts that do things, like for instance, pod generation is done by a Perl script. It's a patch that I started working on because there were a couple, you know, regexes that were in separate places that were doing the same thing. I thought, well, I could refactor this and put this into a single subroutine. Awesome, makes the code maintainable and teaches me a little bit about, you know, the patching process. Improve unit test coverage. This is kind of neat. So there are some bugs that have been tagged in RT, and so I'll go ahead and show you guys that list. So RT is Pro 5 Core, all the places, or all the bugs and everything are tracked through RT, and you can see that's linked here on the page, but I also have it in my buffer because I've been having flaky internet. There it is. So this is a great tag. There's a bunch of beginning things here that, you know, that have been tagged, and so kind of nice. So these are some good starting points. Another great starting point is the to-do list. So there is an official to-do list. It's a pretty long document, but it's worth a read if you're just looking for ideas. So here's the to-do list. It's in the Git repository for Perl. And so there's a huge long list of all kinds of things from, what is it, you know, custom tap generation, automate Perl delta generation, make sure and pour, write descriptions for tests. I mean, you know, just all kinds of stuff in here. So again, if you're looking for ideas, you know, that's a really good place to get some inspiration. So how do you contribute to the Procore? Well, they've done a really good job of documenting it, so I'm just going to walk through the documentation and actually try to do a live demo of doing a Procore patch. I'm not that awesome. But I'll go ahead and show you guys the documentation. It's perl.org, perlhack.html. I know Ricardo mentioned Perl Hack Toot. I think Perl Hack is a little bit nicer, especially if you're brand new and just looking for, again, like a getting started thing. So I'll go ahead and show you guys that. That was the to-do. Here we go. So this is the Perl Hack, and if you go to the section, super quick patch guide, it's really great. So first thing you do is you clone the Git repo, make your change, hack, test your change, and this is a really awesome place, even if you're not sure that you want to contribute to Procore, it is kind of fun to just clone the repo and run the tests and just see if anything breaks locally on your machine, and if something does, then that's an opportunity for a bug or maybe even a patch that you can contribute to Procore. You know, and it makes you feel super awesome because you just downloaded Perl from the repo and built it on your machine. So anyways, I get excited by things. And then finally, you commit your change. There's a nifty little tool called Perl Bug, which should come with your Perl installation. And you can use that, and so what that'll do is it'll create an RT ticket. There is also a page here on Perl Bug within the documentation. This is also a really good documentation page to read. It has a description of how Perl Bug works. If Perl Bug is not working on your system, some workarounds, and when reporting a bug, please run through this checklist. So there's a really nice description of, you know, even if you're nervous about, you know, just reporting a bug and you know, you want to make sure you do it right. You know, there's a whole bunch of great stuff here. I think applicable to reporting bugs in general, you know. Good stuff. So Procore has done a great job of providing lots of documentation. It's just a matter of finding it and knowing, you know, what to find that's useful. So hopefully these docs will give you a good starting point. So yeah, and so that was the short walkthrough of the docs. All right, so that's Perl 5 core in a nutshell. Again, like I said, this is just going to be a basic, just how to get your feet wet. So now I'm going to talk about Sipan. And Sipan, I'm going to talk about a couple of things. Before I started contributing and actually got maintainer on some modules, there's a lot about Sipan that I did not know. For about 5 years, I just went to Sipan to see, if I needed to do something, and was like, all right, did somebody already write something for this? Okay, awesome, I'm going to use it. And so when I got to a place where I wanted to start contributing, I learned all of these things, all these different aspects of Sipan. So in a nutshell, Sipan is the place where modules live. It's an index that'll map a module name to a file archive location. And I highly recommend, if you're not using Meta Sipan, absolutely you should be using Meta Sipan, because Meta Sipan, in addition to all the basic module information that's on Sipan, there's a lot of meta information there, and especially if you're looking to contribute to a Sipan module, I'll show you why that's really, really nice to have. So where do the actual files live if Sipan is just the index? Well, there's a server called Pause. That's the Perl authors upload server. You actually don't need an account on this server in order to contribute, in order to patch a module. You really only need it if somehow you magically become maintainer, and even if you just want to patch a module, I'll talk about how that could possibly happen to you, which, see it as an opportunity. And this is located at pause.perl.org, and so I'll show you guys what that looks like. Let's see. So here's Pause. This is where, if you are a Sipan module maintainer, you could potentially manually upload things here. I personally prefer Dacilla, but that's me. And then you can also do account management if you want to have somebody. So if a module maintainer wants to add, somebody as a co-maintainer, they would do it through the Pause interface. So that's just kind of an FYI, something cool I didn't know about until I started becoming a more active contributor. Now, one of my favorite things, Sipan Testers. So the goal of Sipan Testers is to test Sipan modules with as many versions and configurations of Perl as possible on as many platforms as possible. So this is really actually a great opportunity to contribute if you have a special need, like say you have some kind of a special, server, operating system or whatever, and you have a lot of issues with Sipan module compatibilities. This is a great opportunity to contribute to Sipan Testers by doing some testing on your particular platform. And I don't know, where's Garu? Is he in the room? I thought I saw him a second ago. Oh. Oh, there's Garu. So Garu, if you guys are interested in learning more about Sipan Testers, that's the guy to talk to. And I'll show you guys some cool stuff. So they have I have the Sipan Testers website up, and it's just sipantesters.org. And this is kind of neat because they have some cool little stats up here. So right now everything's good. You can see the most recent report. Now the one that I really like is this is also through Sipan Testers, is stats.sipantesters.org, and this is like a live count of reports and number of distributions on Sipan, and there's all these cool graphs. So if you're a nerd like me and you like stats, then this is kind of a cool thing to check out. So again, another opportunity to contribute, but I'm not going to get too much into that because it's more of a general contributing to Sipan talk. So what should I contribute to Sipan? File a bug. That's pretty useful. Improve documentation on a module you struggle to use, especially if you got help from the author or if you had to crack open the source code in order to figure out how to use it. This is an excellent, excellent opportunity to save other people time. I can't count the number of times that I personally have not contributed documentation when I should have, and it probably would have saved so many other people headaches. It would have saved the author's time. It's really, really straightforward and a very easy way to provide something back to the community when you find something useful on Sipan. Another thing, if you had to make local changes to make it work for you, absolutely submit the patch. And maybe it'll get rejected, maybe it won't, but I'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, so that's awesome. How do I get started? So before I continue, Sipan is the wild, wild west. It is a wild frontier. Every module owner does things their own way. So do not trust that the stuff that what I'm going to talk to you about and the process I'm going to suggest is merely an example. You absolutely want to check with the module maintainer and read their specific documentation before you just assume that they're going to use the same process. However, for the record, the process that I'm going to recommend is just a GitHub-based process, so a lot of module maintainers are using that now. So you should be good to go. So how do I submit a patch to Sipan? Well, first, you need to find the location of the source code repository. This is where meta Sipan is awesome. So let me flip over. Oh, and two, where the author wants patches submitted. Generally, they're going to provide that information in the documentation. But if they're using GitHub, then, so this is a module I created for my talk. Oh, something kind of cool. Let me show you guys the Sipan Testers table. So here, when you have a module up on Sipan, there's a little link in meta Sipan, so I can see all the places where I passed and failed through Sipan Testers. This is kind of a cool little thing, and all the versions of Perl that my little module worked on. So this is why meta Sipan is great. Check it out, clone repository. Oh, well, that must be where the author wants things, and unless they say something different, generally that should be sufficient if they have GitHub. So let me see, I think I had an example. Oh, here we go. So date time, here's an example of one that's a little bit different. So this one is a straight Git clone. So he'll want you to clone the Git repository and probably submit a patch through RT. So Sipan also uses RT. Actually, I'm going to talk about that in a second. So, okay, so let me get back on track here before my brain turns into Sipan. All right. So yeah, find the repo. Some modules on meta Sipan have repository info. You want to check the module documentation. There's a really great utility called GetCPNPatch. I'll show you guys the page. I'm not going to get into how it works into a lot of detail, but it's essentially if you have to download the tarball for some reason, you can basically use a Git repo locally and then submit patches directly to RT. So so you're not having to force the author to use Git if that's not what they want to use. And it's a pretty cool little suite of commands. So if you are in a situation where you have to download a tarball because that's where it is, or for whatever reason you can't get repo information from the author, then you should absolutely check out GetCPN. All right, where was I? Download the source tarball, last resort. So where do you submit the patch? Well, typically the author is going to have information. They will probably have specified the bug tracker in the meta Sipan information if they're not using GitHub. But it could be GitHub, Bitbucket, SourceForge, I mean, all over the place. Like I said, it's the Wild West. Otherwise, if you can't find any information, use RT. So what is RT? rt.cpan.org. Say you want to file a bug, it's really easy. You would send an email to bug-module name separated by dashes, except that's actually wrong. That should be a capital A, and those should be capital A's, not lowercase, I think. Yeah. So you could absolutely just send an email and add your patch if you were submitting a patch with your RT. So use RT if the author says to, or you can't find any bug tracker info. And again, you can attach a patch to RT. So I'm going to show you RT. So here's what the page looks like when you come in. And if you don't have an account but want to browse bugs, you can use the public interface. And they show here, want to report a bug, send it in via email. There's a lot of great information, some outdated module examples that should probably be updated. Hey, opportunity. And then as a module maintainer, what I see when you submit that bug, let me click on my little guy over here, Acme Auggy. Hey, more test bugs. So I've got some people submitting bugs to my little test module because the Perl community is very prolific and sometimes I think bored. But I see it as but I see it as supportive and I appreciate it because now I have some great examples to show all of you, wonderful people. So yes, that's what RT looks like. And I generally get an email letting me know that I've got an RT. So, and also if you submit something in GitHub, then they'll get that as well. But I'll talk about GitHub right now. So pull request is probably sufficient for submitting your patch. Optionally, you can create an RT ticket. That's perfectly fine. No problem there. So, all right. So GitHub, let me go ahead and show you guys how that would work. Now, I'm assuming that most of you are probably, oh, that's the wrong window. Too many desktops. No such thing. All right. All right, so here's my wonderful Acme Auggy. So say, so this is my perspective, and so because I own it, obviously I can't do a pull request. So I created an account that I call Auggy Troll. And so Auggy Troll can do what's called a pull request. So the way you do that is you log into GitHub, you click the magic fork button, and then you'll fork, and then now you have a repo that's tied to that repo, and voila, So now I can make my code changes. So I'm going to clone it on my machine, which I've already cloned it. So obviously it's going to complain. And then, sorry? Oh, is it too small?
Yes.
How do I? That's a good question. I'm pretty new to this whole presentation thing. Control Shift Plus. What is it? Sorry.
You can't just Control Plus.
Yeah.
It's a better terminal, but you can't.
Yeah. So. All right. Okay. Well, I mean, most of you. Yeah. So. Anyways. Yeah. So. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So I've CD'd into my repo. So this is now cloned, and I've got it locally. So I'm going to make my code changes. Hack. I'm going to add a new method called sayAuggyIs. I'm going to add a unit test because I come to class prepared. I've already done this, so I don't have to nervously type it in front of you guys. All right, and then now I'm going to go back to my terminal, and then I'm going to run my tests to make sure that I didn't screw anything up and everything is successful. So now I would do all my git commit, which I've already done, and everything. So I'll do all my git commit or git add, and then git commit, which I've already done. So I'm not gonna redo it. But after I've done the git commit and put a very useful commit message, then I'll do a git push to send it up. And obviously I don't need to do this because this has already been done. But that's in a nutshell how you would do a pull request on that side. So once you've got it back up on GitHub, let me get back to that window. That is not that window. All right. So once you've got it back up on GitHub, you're going to press the magic pull request button. Actually, I wanted to go over to my Auggy Troll account. Multiple browsers. Going crazy. All right. So now I'm gonna push the magic pull request button. And so here I'm going to type, hey, I'm adding auggyIs, and I just want to add this new feature because your module is awesome. And then I'm going to submit the pull request, and then it'll show up in the list here. And so now, as the admin of that, I will have a pull request. Hopefully my network is not dead. Okay. So now I've got a couple pull requests. This is actually the good one. So the other one was me making a mistake. And so it's kind of cool. Like, one of the cool things about being a maintainer and hosting your stuff on GitHub is if I like your request, I can just hit that button, and it's pretty cool. And now I've merged. Yay! So now, as the maintainer, I'm not, going to go through all of this, but so as the maintainer, potentially, did I have that open on the side? Oh no, okay. So as the maintainer, I would then download that, and then I use Distilla. So then I would download that new, I'd do a pull to my local repo, do whatever things I needed to do, package it up, and then using Distilla, I would just probably run some tests and then do dzil release. Bam, and then there would be a new version of the module up on Sipan in a short amount of time. So that would be cool. So that's just kind of what happens from the maintainer side. But again, all you really need to care about if you're interested in patching a Sipan module, again, I kind of recommend if you can find something that's on GitHub, it's really easy, as you could see there. So that's how you would go about doing that in GitHub. So this is kind of some useful stuff. How do I write a patch that's likely to get merged? Don't submit a large, complex patch. So don't submit like one commit where you've done white space fixes, you've done unit tests, you've done like 5 different features, and it's all in one big thing. Because that makes it really difficult for the maintainer when they receive the patch. What if they only want to keep part of it? Or what if they like one thing, but they don't like something else, or whatever? It makes it really hard for them to deal with it, and they're more likely to reject your patch. So for each thing that you're doing, make it its own commit. Make sure each commit has a clear commit message so that whoever the maintainer is, they're probably busy, they can look at it pretty quickly and know if it's something that they're interested in. Also, be consistent and stick to the author style. I'm not going to get into the whole, spaces versus tabs war, but if you like spaces, author likes tabs, use tabs. The author is probably not, again, if you don't like it, you can always fork, make your own, spaces version. I don't know. It's open source. Update documentation when appropriate. That's always very useful. Like, for instance, if you add a new method, like I did in the case of mine, I updated the pod with a new method definition. Write tests to support your changes. Again, really, really important. And finally, if there is a change log for the module, go ahead and update the change log with the changes that you've added. So those are just some tips on how to write a successful patch. So again, how do I submit my patch? Well, you got to download the source code, make your changes, and submit the code. What happens when I submit a patch? Well, if the author accepts your change, they merge it into their repository and they release the code. If your change is rejected, however, and this does happen, the author will comment on the pull request or the RT ticket, or they may contact you directly. Don't give up. Talk it out with the author if it's something that you feel pretty strongly about and you feel like you can convince them. Great. Or, use the feedback to fix your patch. Maybe it was just as simple as, hey, your commit message wasn't very helpful. Can you improve that? That definitely happened to me on, I think, my first Perl 5 documentation patch. It was just a simple documentation patch, so I didn't think I needed to really say that much. But it turns out, it was more helpful for everyone else if I did. So, I learned my lesson. How do I know my patch was submitted? RT will respond to you with an email. If you don't get an email, wait a couple of days and resubmit. The system is generally pretty reliable, but every now and then, things happen. GitHub will show your pull request. It also notifies the author. Again, if you don't hear anything and you've put in a pull request, go ahead and submit an RT ticket. That'll ping the author. Okay, so what happens if the author, you do all this, you've pinged the author a bunch of times and it's, you're just not getting a hold of them? Send an email to modules@perl.org. Use this resource only after several attempts to contact the author. State a log of how you tried to contact the author, and if the author is unresponsive, hey, you could be the new maintainer. Welcome to Sipan. Or finally, like I said, if just you're just having very huge philosophical differences and the author is being very difficult to work with, fork, and that's another way that you now become the maintainer of your own, your own module. Final comments. Collaboration is fun. It's fun to work on interesting things. Others get really excited about your ideas. You get excited about someone else's ideas. It feels good to help other people out. You learn new things. I know typically in most of our jobs we're kind of doing the same thing all the time, working with the same code base. We get really comfortable. So it's nice to branch out and kind of throw yourself into the deep water of some murky, CPAN module or P5, core issue. Even people who aren't using Perl at work generally contribute to the Perl community because it's fun. So that's the end of my talk. If you guys have any questions. Yes?
This isn't a question so much as a comment. There's also GitPan, which I don't know.
Yes.
Talk about.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Actually, you probably, I've mostly just used GitHub. I haven't used GitPan very heavily.
So in 2009, Schwern had this crazy idea to upload every single module that was on Cpan to GitHub. And so there's an archive called GitPan, and it's actually github.com/GitPan. And it has basically everything that was on Cpan in 2009. So if nothing else, it's certainly on GitHub somewhere, if it's sufficiently old enough. If it's newer, then it probably already does have resources, because I know that a lot of module authors are really good at, speaking personally, this is super important. If anyone sends me a patch for anything I've written, I'm super grateful no matter how it comes to me, email, pull requests, smoke signals, carrier, it doesn't matter, right? Yeah, I don't always want to do the patch necessarily, but I am exceedingly obsequiously grateful for contributions. So, but GitPan is a resource too if you want to use it.
Oh, great, thank you. Sawyer.
I want to comment that some module authors can be abrasive, and you shouldn't be discouraged. Sorry? You shouldn't be discouraged just if you found someone who was not thankful for a contribution that you made. Generally, the users, even if the module author is not grateful, which almost everyone will be, but the users will always be grateful. So one of the best things you said was like documenting things that you went through. One of the most important things that users get, other users who've been through something that they don't know, and document.
Yeah, that's what this whole, I was gonna say, that's what this whole talk is about. But to add to that as well, you know, when contributing to Perl Core as well, I know Perl Help and P5P are very welcoming and friendly environments, but it is IRC. So if you do have, for some reason, you know, you feel like you had a negative experience, you know, don't let that discourage you. And if anything, you know, please talk about it. Like whether, you know, if it's to an individual on the mailing list that you know, or you can, I don't know, you can email me if you want. And you know, I'm more than happy to try to mediate, you know, whatever happened. But I mean, you know, overall, they are very nice and very friendly places. So I don't want anybody to feel like you can't go on those places and ask questions. But certainly, if you do, for any reason, have a bad experience, it's an anomaly. So we want to know about it. Yeah, in the back.
One thing I throw out there for first-time contributors too. Please don't let your fear of not being perfect or whatever stop you trying to contribute. Because I did that for years. I started programming Perl in about 2000. Didn't actually write my own Sipan module until 2008 because it was a great. I had this image that, you know, open source Perl programmers are an amazing group. They're perfect. They emanate Perl code. Never anything wrong. Anything less than perfect will make everybody mock you, and it's not the case at all. You know, it took a long time for me to get over that. Just throw it out there. I put my module up. It's a tiny little thing, a big holiday trust store. And we put it up there. And like a week later, somebody said, hey, there's a bug. There's a patch. I'm like, oh my God, I should have done this 10 years ago. Oh, this is amazing.
So
I actually forked your module and implemented a Brazilian version for big holidays. Excellent.
Open source in action, folks.
yeah, so for those of you on the stream, just, you know, it's just a reiteration of the don't be intimidated. You know, don't be afraid of perfection, or don't focus on perfection. You know, everybody's human, and it's better to put something out there and get the support from the community than it is to think about it. Yes?
I have 2 tips for new contributors.
Oh, yes.
For Procore at least, because that's where
Great.
One very useful thing, if you're just new and just starting, just document the way you're learning stuff, because there's Perl hack that, but they're not really that accessible. I mean, that's a good starting point, but after that, it's all up in the air, and just, you know, saying, oh, I read this file and I found this, whether it's explanation that actually makes sense. Send us some feedback, or even if you want to write a thought about it, and that would be super awesome.
Yeah, and that's actually why I like to point to the Perl hack document, because I feel like just for getting started with simple patches, it's a lot more, I find it to be a lot more readable and helpful than the Perl toot, or Perl hack toot, I think it is.
That's just welcome.
There was even an incident recently for Perl Delta, in which there was this new feature being explained, and some guy posted a bug saying, well, I've looked at the release candidate, and I don't know what this means. So I tried to rephrase it. Can you please check if this makes sense? And the guy that wrote the original text said, wow, thank you. Come to think of it, your explanation is much better than mine. And upon realization, I couldn't figure out what I was talking about. I appreciate it. And this goes on and on, you know, forever. So it's a great thing to do.
Yeah, so again, summation for the stream, if you couldn't hear, basically documentation patches, A++.
Just a small one. When sending patches to a Perl core, if you don't get the mail back, log into P5P, the VRC channel, and just say, hey, I sent the patch, but I didn't get a reply back, and someone there will check the moderator queue and see if it's there, so so it doesn't get lost.
Oh, yes.
I was wondering, is there anywhere where there's sort of like I guess a wish list or something? Like, like sort of, in looking for that supply win, I think it would be cool to, obviously like there'll be things that you're already looking at there, but if there's some small things that maybe like module maintainers might want or something like that, in documentation or for someone like that, like is there any sort of list like that, or could someone do something like that?
Absolutely.
And that might be a good thing for people to get started.
Yeah. So the question was like, are people making wish lists on their modules, looking for contributions? And I know some people do, some people don't. But I think that's a great suggestion to module maintainers. If you do want people to contribute, and you have particular areas that you would like them to contribute in, absolutely. Like.
Maybe even some centralized sort of aggregating.
Oh, a centralized wish list?
Like okay, here's like a bunch of stuff on feed.
Right.
Sort of.
I mean, the only thing I can think of would be like rt.cpan.org.
Recently, there's this Perl site that was released, and it's called QuestHub, and basically it's a social to-do list where basically you prioritize it based on what the community wants. So that kind of fits into that.
What is it? Play Perl?
Search for Play Perl and you'll find it. You'll find some blog posts and the site itself.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna look for it live.
Yeah, a lot of people put the wish lists on Playflow, and even their
Here we
own,
go.
like goals and milestones. And there's also pre-plan, which people can use to, like, so I have this idea for a module, and I'm not sure exactly what the API should be.
It's called QuestHub now.
What?
Auggy, QuestHub.
Yeah.
Quest.net?
QuestHub.
Oh, QuestHub.
.io.
All right. Ooh. Oh, it's a little raptor. All right. I'm sorry, somebody was sharing something and then we got distracted.
You can always contact the community and ask them.
Yes. Yeah, that's the other thing I think I mentioned is that CPAN modules, some of them do have IRC channels associated with them. And if not, you can always go to Perl Help and ask there, and somebody will probably point you in the right direction. Yeah?
I was just going to say one of the modules I maintain is Perl Doc. And while I don't submit feature requests for Perl Doc, because that just means more work for me, other people do. So there's a class of ticket in RT called Wishlist. And a lot of stuff has wishlist tickets on them. So if you really want to win brownie points, I would happily accept wishlist contributions for Perl Doc, especially if they were of the unit test variety, because that's one of my wishlist items. But yeah, so there's all kinds of tickets that are out there that are severity wishlists that are maybe on modules that you use all the time, that someone thought was a good idea once upon a time, and you can see some of them are quite old. Those are unfulfilled wishes, which is all very sad. Yeah, like that one at the top is 10 years old. That's super sad.
And just a note about rt.cpan.org, all you need to do is for yourself create a Bitcard account, so anybody can, or use an OpenID to log in. So anybody can create a login, and again, you can browse tickets anonymously too, but there's no restriction on joining RT. So again, for the stream, if you guys couldn't hear, we're talking about how do we get wish lists. And so QuestHub.io is one, and then also there's a wish list severity in RT that are also really useful.
Some people tag it in GitHub.
Yes, okay, and some people tag in GitHub with a wish list. Great.
Then, one other thing, there's an Adopt Me module author, actually, that Brian Foy started.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Adopt Me. It's this author for abandoned modules that are looking for a good home. So if you really want to take over an abandoned module that literally has no author right now, you can search for Adopt Me on MetaCPAN, and
All one word or two words?
it's one word. It's one, author Adopt Me.
Also, Adam K.
Huh?
Yeah, well, okay.
Just search for Adam K. Or alias. Pick up the
Oh,
No, you got it right. It's over there.
or is it authors?
You can just put it in the URL actually if you want. But yeah, it's right now I guess there's only 2, but there's been a push to put abandoned modules that are like officially abandoned, like by the authors, that I will no longer maintain these. I've been trying to put them into the Adopt Me namespace.
All right. Well, if there isn't anything else to add, wonderful discussion and very informative. So hopefully some of you who are not contributors have been inspired to become contributors, and hopefully some of the folks here that are contributors have gotten some ideas on how to make life easier for new potential contributors. So thank you very much, and feel free to chase me down if you want to talk more or whatever.